Okay, so checking on this leave-in that I made last night. It's first thing in the morning. And looks as it should. It's a little bit bigger, it's bubbly. There are some kind of dry spots to it, but that's okay. That's not a big deal. The first thing that we have to do is make sure that it passes a float test. So I have a bowl here with just some room temperature water in it. And I'm taking a little bit of this and checking, and it does. You have to make sure that your leave-in floats. If it doesn't float, it's not gonna rise when you make the bread. So that's my sign that it's ready to go. I can do something with it. So I've got my larger bowl ready now. I'm gonna be messing around a little bit with numbers today because I'm experimenting with new flours. Anytime you change flour, you can expect that you may have a few times where the bread doesn't work exactly as you thought it would. But in general, you are going to add 700 grams of warm water. And so it should be of a temperature, yeah, I can stick my finger in it. It feels kind of like my skin temperature. It's not warmer than that. So I realize I'm using a little bit less, but you're gonna use 700 grams. And then I'm just gonna re-zero because it's easier for me. You need 200 grams of your leave-in. So you will have leftover, and you can use the leftover for maybe even 2 more loaves. So this is going to actually make 2 loaves of bread, what I'm doing right now. And you can use the rest to make more. You can use it for, I've seen all kinds of recipes for buns, for pizza dough. So this is active, ready to be used right now, or you can chuck it. It's really entirely up to you, whatever it is that you have the time or energy or creativity to do. So now again, with hands, nice clean hands, you are breaking up any little bits of clump that you find here, stirring it in, really trying to incorporate it. So this nice warm water has lots and lots and lots of leave-in in it. All right, that's pretty good. I'm gonna rinse my hand. Next, the basic numbers we want for flour is 100 grams of whole wheat flour and 900 grams of all-purpose flour. I'm going to be mixing things up a little bit. I'm almost out of whole wheat, so I'm going to use a little bit of rye, and I'm also going to be using more of these than my whole all-purpose flour because my all-purpose flour is a new flour, and it's really finely ground. So it's not holding moisture as much as it should. So know that you may have to play a little bit with the numbers, but a really basic whole wheat and really basic all-purpose, you aren't going to have to. So there's my whole wheat. Sourdough really likes rye flour. It makes it really active. Don't really know why, but rye. Rye is the way to go. So I'm adding some rye just to make up for the fact that I don't have a whole lot of wheat. And so we're up to 200. Now I'm gonna get the rest up to 1,000 with my all-purpose. And again, because I'm experimenting here, I'm gonna go a little over 1,000. Okay, there we are. So this part gets really messy. So when we first start mixing this in, it's gonna make a really rough, sticky dough. So you can see it is totally all over my hands, completely stuck. And that is really about what it is meant to look like. So it's really sticky. I'll get as much of it off of me as I can. Okay, so now we're gonna cover that with a tea towel and wait for 30 to 40 minutes. I'll see you back then. Okay, so this dough has sat for about 40 minutes and you missed it, but I added 20 grams of pink sea salt and 50 grams of warm water. So again, the warm is the key. This is starting to come back together. When you first add it, you kind of question if it was a good idea, but now it is starting to look like the dough it's supposed to look like. It's still a little bit sticky, and that's okay that we want that. So now I'm gonna cover it with a towel and put it somewhere warm. Every half hour now, I'm gonna need to take this stretch and fold, stretch and fold. Okay, next step. So my hand is wet just so this doesn't stick to me. Every half hour you do this for up to 3 or 4 hours. This is the first time I've done it. So you can see the dough is still, it's pretty tight. It's not really moving, it's actually quite sticky. But that is what you do. You go around, I maybe do about 8 of those, stretch, fold, and then cover it back up and put it back wherever is the warm place you were using. I've been using my oven. I turned on my oven first thing and then turned it back off. So now it's kind of nice and warm in there, and I'll leave it in there for another half hour. Getting bigger. All right, so now we are ready for the next step. You can see how much the dough has risen being here. So I'm going to wet my hand just so that it doesn't stick too much to me. It is quite sticky. And get this all out onto my counter. So like I said, I'm experimenting with a new flour here. So mine is a little bit darker than yours will be, and that's okay. But it seems to be just about the right texture. So now you can see this is super sticky. So I'm going to flour it. And you use as much as you need to make it almost like a crust on the outside. So it's gonna be sealed up, keep all that moisture inside, and not on my hands. So now I can touch that, no problem. Okay, next step, I'm gonna cut it in half. So this is 2 loaves. You can cut it into any size, really. This is just to do a loaf. Flip it over. So now the floured side is down, the sticky side is up. And I'm going to do these both a little bit differently. I made one a little bigger than the other, and that's fine too. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to flavor one of my breads and keep one plain. I've got pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds all prepped here and ready to go. So this is the stretch and fold phase of it. And that's really exactly what you do. You take an end, you pull it, and you fold it onto itself. It take an end, oops, broke it. Not tear and fold, stretch and fold, stretch, fold. So just keep doing it. It's starting to get really sticky on the bottom there, so I'm gonna get more flour. And then a technique that I saw that I kind of like, once I get that all stretched and folded, I actually take it and like try to roll it. And that is my last step. Then I tuck all of those edges that I can underneath and get a little bit more flour here for the top just because it's still sticky. So you might need more flour than I did, or you might need less. What I'm doing here is tucking under and letting go. Tucking under and letting go. So you are trying to create the structure of the bread. It's fairly firm when you do this. Hopefully it keeps about this shape while it settles here. So that's one. This is my technique for adding flavoring. I'm still working on this, but so far this seems to be the best system I've got. I put this all over, I guess about 2/3 of the exposed sticky area of the loaf. And then I stretch that far end over and fold. And then I do it again. Seeds, stretch, fold. I think I can do it one more time. Seeds, stretch, fold. Actually, I can do it again. So get as many of those seed little sections in there as possible. I find that this is the best way to get it throughout the bread in little swirls instead of just in one spot. And I can feel that I am going to need more flour as soon as I grab it again. So I'm doing more flour. Stretch and fold, and then here's my weird roll technique. Good. And then that same tucking under, forming a ball. Again, there's a little bit of stickiness to this. So you want that outer, I'm calling it a crust, but you want the outer crust to be a solid piece with nothing sticky, because that is what keeps the shape of your ball as it rises. And then just for my own sanity, because I forget all the time which one is which when I do two different ones, I'm sticking a little seed in there. Now, cover them and let them rest for 30 minutes on the counter. Okay, so next step, I am prepping, these are my very fancy bread baskets, because I don't have one. I use a dinner napkin and a glass bowl. And this jar of flour that I keep is half rice flour and half my all-purpose flour. And I want enough of this in these prepped baskets so that there is not going to be any sticking of the dough. All right, so let's check on these babies. They've been sitting here for about a half hour. And I'm actually really happy with the shape that they have kept. So you can see this one is kind of flattened a little bit, which is fine, but it is still like in that basic nice round shape. So that tells me that these are good. They're gonna hold their structure. If your dough flattens out, it needs more flour to hold it together. There are still ways that you can save it, but it does need to be able to keep a basic shape. So my scraper again, I'm gonna pick that guy up, flip him over. I don't know why it's a guy, but it's a guy. And now I do that stretch and fold thing again. So this is my basic white one. I don't need to worry about anything in it. So I'm taking, pulling, folding into the middle. Taking, pulling, folding. The stretch is an important part of this because it actually makes those gluten fibers stretchy, stick together. It's the technical term. And then I'm gonna roll this baby all up again. Get it nice and round, and I just made one side of that a little bit sticky, so I'm gonna again flour. You may not need to use as much flour as I do. Like I said, I'm using a new kind of flour that is a little bit finer ground than what I'm used to, and that is making it need more. So I'm doing that again, tuck under, make this guy as tight as I can. Sometimes you get little bubbles. I'm not actually very concerned about that one. It's a small one under the skin, but you might need to pop big bubbles. Okay, so that's that guy. And he goes into there. So I'm gonna do the other one as well. You don't even need to watch that. Now you can either put this in a warm environment for 3 to 4 hours, or you can pop it into the fridge for anywhere, I think, between like 8 and 15 hours seems to be fine. That's the range that I've experimented with. When you bake it tomorrow, I'm gonna put this one in the fridge. When you bake it tomorrow, you do want it to come back up to room temperature before you actually start the baking.